Here's a question for you. When's the next general election going to be? Lord Hayward is here, pollster. When's it going to be? I remember you telling me that it was going to be October 2024.
And I still believe that. That was in February or March this year when the inflation figures first did not come down as fast as they were expected to. They continued in that process through the summer. Then we had a big drop, but it has to continue to bring it down to the levels that they've been talking about, which is October next year.
And if the suggestions are that it could drop to 3%, snap election?
No, there won't be a snap election. People are cynical about politicians in general. All the polls show that.
I wonder why that is.
I wonder. But of all political persuasions,
of course,
they're cynical. And all the messages in terms of inflation, interest rates, which are the two big things that really matter to a large part of the electorate, they're not going to be in a position for the Tory party to go for an election until late next year, if they are in at that time.
Couple of things that are going to influence the election, I'm guessing. I don't know. You're the expert. HS2 and also inflation.
HS2 is a key issue at this point. It will be important to certain parts of the country. But there are many big issues which are big at the time, but the long-term issues are the economy and inflation. Below that, you talk about the NHS, climate change, immigration. Those are the sorts of things which influence people's overall voting patterns at a general election.
As far as HS2 is concerned, well, it would appear that we know. Why is he not telling us?
We're in Manchester.
Is it that simple?
Politicians of all political persuasions make judgments about when they make announcements. I'm not saying there is an announcement to be made. You just had Alex Chalk on, I was watching. But you choose, if you can, your timing on any political announcement. All governments have been doing it for decades. And it's leaked out that there is discussion. And it would be... You've been going on about HS2, I don't mean you personally, but newscasters...
I have, though. Yeah, I have. It's my part of the world, I want to know what it's going to do.
Newscasters in general, because it is significant. It's not only significant for the Northwest.
It's costly.
It's significant for the country as a whole. But Britain doesn't do major infrastructure projects very well. They all run grotesquely over budget, and they all run late. You can look at...
Why is that?
I'm not really sure. I'm not an expert on civil engineering and projects. But if you look at Heathrow, you look at Thameslink, you look at all the projects around the country, the only one that I can think of in 40 or 50 years was the NEC that was built on time and to budget. Everything else grotesquely overpriced. And you've seen the horror stories about the number of PR people that HS2 is employing. Nobody understands that. And I see it in Westminster in terms of over-expenditure on our construction.
So it's a shoo-in as far as Labour's concerned, then?
It isn't necessarily, but the prospects for the Conservatives get more difficult as every month goes on. When we were chatting in February and March, the Conservatives needed inflation in particular to come down. It's taken a long time to even budge. It is not resolved because the government has to prove over the next 12 months that it can be competent in broad terms.
So what does Labour have to do for an overall majority, a working majority?
They've got to gain the sum total of seats that they did in 1997, and that gives a majority of one.
Wow.
We have a major political event.
160-something.
It is. We have a major political event this week, not here in Manchester, and that's the Rutherglen by-election. Really important for the Labour Party, because Scotland, the Labour Party is down to one seat. That will be a clear indication whether the SNP, which is in a dire position, if Labour don't win that handsomely, there'll be a message in terms of its prospects in Scotland. So there are other political indications out there, as well as what's going on in Manchester.
What's your prediction?
I never make predictions, you know that.
I thought I'd ask you anyway.
You ask me regularly, and I never make predictions until very close to an election.
OK, well, come back and I'll try again in Liverpool next week. Good to see you. Thanks very much.